There we go. Okay. So first of all, just a small, quick presentation of the Gender Equality Academy. Almost all of you know it, but just in case. This workshop, as you may know, is part of this 2-year program that includes many different training formats, as you see there, with the specific goal of providing capacity building on gender equality in research and innovation. You can check all the different offers in the website. And I specifically recommend you the YouTube channel, because you have all the seminars, the webinars, and so on there, and really good ones. So yeah, sadly, this is coming to an end, as we were saying, but let's see if we've got some options for sustainability here. Let's see. So this is going to be the program for these 2 days. Okay, today we will start with some really basic inputs on institutional change and gender equality plans, but we'll devote most part of the session to the notion of change agent and its key features. This is going to be today. As you see, content is going to be a little bit squeezed, so I might be running at some point. My apologies in advance. I ask for your understanding here, but let's see how we manage. And tomorrow we will be focusing mainly on the engagement strategies, which I think it's going to be nice as well. Okay, I wanted to bring some of your expectations. Thank you for filling the ex-ante questionnaire, and thank you for going into the Miro board to share this. We'll try to cover as much as possible from this, as many as possible, but we'll be focusing mainly in change agents, of course, and in the engagement strategies. That will be tomorrow, as I said, and not so much in the rationale or in the theory for developing gender equality plans in universities, because one of you was mentioning especially that. But in any case, of course, everything is connected, so there will be input regarding that as well. And we will try to have enough time devoted to group work, so we can also cover this aspect of sharing ideas, sharing best practices, and so on, which is also one of my expectations. Let's have a quick overview, okay? Quick overview, because we are going to talk about change agents, but for institutional transformation. So we should start defining what is institutional transformation, or institutional change, or structural change. You can see that in different forms. Okay, so according to the European Commission and the European Institute for Gender Equality, you have the link down there. You will have the materials, okay? Everything will be sent to you. So institutional change or institutional transformation is a profound change within an institution which, as a consequence, also affects the outside environment. It encompasses changes in the basic values and beliefs that are dominant in a certain institution, as well as changes in the rules and regulations that lead to certain working results. So the strategic goal here would be to integrate gender equality into the regular rules, procedures, and practices, and this is formal and informal practices of an institution, which is really key to go to the formal and the informal part of the institution. So in the end, what we are aiming at is at having a meaningful impact on the organizational culture of our institution, so we can actually transform power relations, and we can end with inequalities, which is the aim of the gender equality plan as well. What are the key ideas of this institutional transformation? Okay, the first one, institutional change requires the transformation of academic power relations, which is really important. We don't tackle power relations enough. And the transformation of the organizational culture, which includes resistance, as you said, and reproduction patterns, and not only policies and structures, okay? So it's not creating a gender equality unit, it's not only having a policy or a specific procedures, it's changing the culture, which is the more difficult thing. And we are still paying insufficient attention to this role of academic power and the role of organizational culture in creating and in perpetuating gender injustice. at all institutional levels, as we said. Somebody was pointing out in another training that the changes, the cultural changes that really matters are those things that are really meaningful. Like, for example, to provide an environment where people is confident to call out unfairness. So it's not only that I have the policy or I have the structure, is that we actually have this zero tolerance environment towards gender violence, for example, things like that. Okay, next. We need to have a broad understanding of institutions. This implies both formal and informal norms, rules, routines, and forms of understanding that are known, accepted, and regarded as legitimate, and therefore difficult to change. So besides these referenced authors that you have here, I recommend on this regard the work of Aruna Rao. Maybe you probably know her and her work at with her team of Gender at Work, it's called, look for that. And of course, I recommend Joan Acker's work on gendered organizations, which you also probably know. If you don't, or if any of you can put those names on the chat box, so the rest can look for them. Joan Acker, you probably know. She is really great and really helpful to understand this whole dimension of the organizational culture. Next, I like this one very much. According to the feminist scholar Joanna Cantola, change is made possible because institutions are full of contradictions and conflicting interests, and therefore can create opportunities. And here she talks especially about opportunities for the exercise of feminist agency. So as change agents, we need to look for these contradictions because they can be windows of opportunity. So our strategies can be focused through this, looking for this kind of contradictions and conflicting interests that might bring us unknown opportunities. And the last one, I also like this one a lot because I like a lot Fiona Mackay. I really love her. So she explains, or she describes this thing of sizing the moment, saying that we need to take into account the institutional readiness. You will have the link to these specific articles that I'm referencing by the end of the presentation, okay? So you will have her article as well. And the thing is that we need to look for this institutional readiness, not only in terms of resources and in terms of structures, or of course the political context, as you were saying also, for example, in Hungary, but also in terms of how open-minded the institution is, or do we have things like active feminist networks and so on that will also help with the institutional readiness, okay? Then, move here, yeah. It is recommended by the European Commission that the Gender Equality Plan addresses the following 5 thematic areas using concrete measures and targets, and that is really important. You probably know that. You said that some of you were preparing already a Gender Equality Plan under, you know, following these requirements of the Horizon Europe program. So these are the 5 areas that are recommended. First, work-life balance and organizational culture. Probably you all know about that. If you want to add some examples in the chat box, all welcome. Or if you have any question, just drop it in the chat. I will go quickly through them, okay? Second one is gender balance in leadership and decision-making. Just one thing about this. This is not only about guaranteeing access to women to this position, it's also about ensuring that they can easily stay in this leadership position, which is key, okay? It's not only access, but how the environment or the resistances they face enables an easy use of the leadership position, okay? Then gender equality in recruitment and career progression. Another area is the integration of the gender dimension into research and teaching content. And the last one would be measures against gender-based violence, including, of course, sexual harassment and sexist harassment. Okay, and this means, of course, specific policies, things like setting reporting instances, specific procedures, also providing information, and also provision of services and support to victims, and very important, also support to witnesses and bystanders, which is something that now more and more institutions are also including, but it's really important to take into account this bystander approach and witnesses approach. So these would be the 5, let's say, like essential factors for gender equality in research and innovation, according to the European Commission. Okay. Then, what are the principles for having an effective institutional change? You have this same list, but with more detailed information in the handouts that you should have received a few days ago. If you haven't, please just let us know so we can email that to you. Okay, we send out, I think it was 3 different materials, handout materials, so you can go through the list, you know, with more detailed information in the handout. I will just go quickly through these principles. That institutional change needs to be participatory, holistic, inclusive, intersectional, visible, and this is really important, the communication strategies we use here. Flexible, and this, of course, very important, not only for the plan, but for the change agents. We need to be really flexible here, and I would say not only flexible, but resilient. And then, of course, the gender equality plan and the institutional change process needs to be sustainable. And, of course, besides all this, as much as possible, is to be feminist. Of course, this is difficult in some context. In some institutions, we cannot even use the word. And I'm thinking, for example, in the colleagues from Hungary, you probably cannot say that out loudly, but there are ways and strategies, no, this healthy feminism that we will be talking about. We will see how to manage and what strategies can we manage to have a process as feminist as possible. Okay. Okay, so within that general frame of institutional change, gender equality plans are defined by the European Commission as the main tool for institutional change. Okay, so let's go briefly through the basics, these basic requirements of the European Commissions on this regard. So, as defined by the European Commission, a gender equality plan is a set of actions and commitments, I would say, that aim to promote gender equality through institutional and cultural change in research and innovation organizations. So, as I was saying, this new framework program, Horizon Europe, as you know, has introduced some requirements, and we have these 4 mandatory requirements for a gender equality plan in order to be eligible for the program. So the first one would be to be a public document, okay, publication. Should be a formal document signed by the top management, disseminated, published in the website, and so on. It needs to have dedicated resources for the whole phase of the gender equality plan. Okay, it needs to include arrangement for data collection and monitoring. Okay, and the last one is that it needs to be supported by training and capacity building, awareness raising activities. Okay, so these are the 4 mandatory requirements for the gender equality plans. Those of you that are now in the process of making your gender equality plans, you need to take this into account. And just very briefly, some key ideas, again, some main ideas on gender equality plan. The first one would be, of course, a gender equality plan is just a way station for institutional change. This is not our final destination. So we need to think long term, and we might need several, of course, we will need several gender equality plans within the whole process of institutional transformation. Then the GEP should help understanding the formal and, as we were saying, the informal ways of the organizational functioning, and of course articulate a strategic view for gender equality. And it should include a set of actions with different degrees of complexity. This means that a gender equality plan is not the mere adoption of general objectives. So we have like a general strategy for gender equality with the general objectives, but we don't have this specific set of actions and we don't have the resources allocated and the targets, then it is not a gender equality plan. It's a general strategy, roadmap, whatever you want to call that, but not a gender equality plan. And then also a gender equality plan is not a broader strategy or a broader plan, including a gender dimension, but within or among other areas. Like you can have a diversity plan, and you might have a good diversity plan that has a gender dimension or a gender perspective, but if it doesn't include a specific objectives for gender equality, and if it doesn't include specific actions and resources for gender equality, then it is not a gender equality plan. It's a nice diversity plan, but not a gender equality plan. Okay? And last, when setting up the gender equality plan, we can talk about these 6 basic steps. Okay? First of all, getting started. And in this phase, some of the activities that we're going to do today, like the map of factors, they are very relevant at this point of the process. Then we need a second step would be analyzing and assessing the state of play. So we need to do a good gender diagnosis of the institution. Then we will go for setting up the gender equality plan and all the design process. Then we would go for implementing the gender equality plan. Of course, monitoring progress, permanent monitoring and evaluating the gender equality plan. And the last step would be this thing of what comes after, where we think about sustainability and the next steps. We assess what we have done, if we have done something well, and where are now in the institution, and we plan our next steps and our next gender equality plan. Okay. In one of the handouts, you have also some more details about these 6 steps for setting up the gender equality plan. Okay. So now let's go directly into this part of change agents for institutional transformation. I hope everybody, because as I'm sorry, my screen, I see only, this small window, but I hope you're all okay there. Please say something if you're not. So who is a change agent? That would be any individual or group that undertakes the task of initiating and managing change in an organization, which is quite a broad definition. So we will go, into the details throughout the workshop. Let's start with that. Of course, the first change agent that you need to think about is yourself, okay? Which is something that we don't do that much. We think that we do, but we don't. We don't take care about ourselves as much as we should. So first, we think about ourselves and the team that we are part of. In the case that you are part of a team in charge of designing and implementing the gender equality plan, as many of you are. So besides that team, what other types of change agents we can have? First, we can have these active individuals based on personal motivations. And this would be somebody who recognizes the unequal relations in the organization and that is actively working to change them. And that can, we don't need to think, on this big scale. That can perfectly be somebody like your peer coworker who normally just applies a gender perspective in teaching, or that can be that person who call out these unfair decisions in a department meeting, for example. So these people that are active in a daily basis in trying to change these inequalities, okay? The second type would be those dynamic, informal groups and networks That can be existing or new groups, associations, or networks pushing for change. For example, a student association, or maybe, if we're lucky, some informal group of feminist teachers that gather together to think about how to change things like that. I don't know, you probably can provide some examples here as well. Then, committed equality officers or gender focal points. And this is institutional change agents with a sanctioned agenda and a specific mission to change existing conditions. So this is formally appointed people. And of course, this can overlap with a gender equality team, but maybe not. Maybe they are different teams, depending on the context. So we need to take them all into account. And last, we can have these supportive institutional figures, important figures like people whose actions or non-actions, which is also key, are crucial to gender equality. And we're talking here about top management, middle managers, people like human resources officers, PIs, for example, all those people. So the thing here is that people in all these categories can be part of the gender equality team or not, depending on our context and on our specific institutional situations. Let's focus on what we have here, and let's focus on the adjectives here. So we have active, dynamic, committed, and supportive. And this is what I was talking about when we did the first exercise, and you said, I'm just motivated, I'm committed, I can be active, maybe I don't have that knowledge, but we need all of these adjectives here. And these are highlighted here because we are not defined, or change agents are not just defined based on the formal position or qualification. They should also be defined and valued because of these characteristics, because they are motivated or because they are proactive. And these are essential components of a change process. So again, it's not only looking for the knowledge or looking, when we look, who do we need to address for moving forward with the gender equality plan? And we look at the structure and we think, okay, the vice rectorate of research, and we need this position, and we think in positions, which of course it's important, because if is the people with the ability to take a decision and to move it forward. But we need to think that in the end, this is people sitting on those chairs. So we need to think whether they are active or not, whether they are resistant, whether they are committed, and all these things, okay? So that's a key aspect for being a change agent. So when we're starting a change process and we're looking for these key change agents, what do we need to think about? So change agents must ensure that the general prerequisites for change are put in place. And these are that we have the adequate resources, that we have support from management, that we have time, of course, and this is really important and we tend to overlook that, and the capability to relate to contextual factors. The gender equality plan and the institutional change process needs to be totally tailored, made to the situation in our institutions, okay? So this is really important. Yeah, and here, according to Anne-Charlotte Kallerstick, very nice as well, she says that findings show that a major feature of the work to implement gender mainstreaming by the change agents are the strategies they developed. We will be talking about this tomorrow, but I wanted just to bring it here. She names, I think, mainly two strategies. The first one would be this so-called tempered radicalism, which is a nice one. We will be talking about that. And these small wins strategies. But of course, we will be thinking about other strategies throughout the workshop. But this is the key issue, the agency and the capabilities of the change agents to actually develop their own strategies based on the context. On the context. Okay, so Let's go a bit further, a bit deeper into this concept of change agent. So what are the different types of change agents? We're now going to talk mainly about two kinds of change agents here. So one first distinction we can make is that which differences between what we call primary change agents and other change agents. Instead of primary change agents, you can talk maybe about key change agents, main change agents, whatever. The thing is that what we are referring to here is to those people who, because of their role and personal motivation, are in the forefront of the change effort. And those people devoting significant time on a regular basis to institutional change towards gender equality. Okay, that would be the primary, main, or key. The key, they can all be key, so not key, but you know what I mean. Okay, this thing of primary change agent. And then we would have these other change agents, and that would be all the people that are supporting change and devoting some time to it out of different motivations and in different capacities. And that would be human rights, or again, human resources. I'm sorry, we'll do it right at some point. Human resources staff, specific PIs, and so on. And then people supporting other compatible causes, for example, these young researchers in PhD or postdoc associations or positions, maybe people working on diversity issues, you were mentioning those as well, and these general allies, we could say, to gender equality. So in general, it's like we can talk about people maybe seeking for social justice, this broad scope of people that could be an ally at some point. Okay, so we need to think also about these other change agents, and not only those in charge of actually developing and implementing the gender equality plan, which is what we tend to think and to focus on. Okay, so some important distinctions here. These primary change agents, as the promoters of the change process, they are not necessarily or always overlapped with those relevant stakeholders like leaders, management, top management positions, and so on, which are in fact important to be involved in the change effort. But not only, they can be different ones. Okay, the thing is that in successful cases, these two groups, in the end, of course, they will tend to overlap with time, but we need to look at all the different spaces to see if we have different agents as primary change agents. And then in different institutions, there can be different connections and relations between the primary change agents and other relevant stakeholders. We were talking before, for example, about the possibility of engaging external change agents when we don't have a big or a solid group within the institution. So we need to see, maybe we only have a couple of people, but they have a lot of connections because they are active in the feminist movement outside or things like that. So we need to think about the connections, not only within, but also outside the institution of all these different change agents. And then one important thing is that we should definitely avoid categorizing these types by importance or by levels of relevance, let's say, as if one were more important than the other. It's not that primary change agents are the important one and the others would be like kind of secondary. Okay, it's not like that. We need all of them on board. In fact, having all the different types on board is what will help us building these bridges that we were talking about between the bottom of top-down approach and the bottom-up approach, which is in fact a lesson learned from different structural change projects, these kinds of bridges. So this would be the best thing, to have all these different change agents connected between them among them. Okay, so let's go into this Last part. We are going to go through these 4 basic features of primary change agents, which are like key requirements and also key challenges for primary change agents, okay? Those are motivational aspects. We are going to talk about specific competencies, assets and resources, and about change agents as teams. If we have time, we can go through some examples even, okay? So the thing is that we use the institutional knowledge of all of these potential change agents to size the moment, as we were saying, and to measure this institutional readiness that Fiona McKay was talking about to move forward. So we need to take into account these 4 aspects. Let's start with the first one, the motivational aspects. So we can have people regarding motivations towards gender equality. We can have people for whom gender equality is the primary drive. So motivations normally coincide with institutional gender equality aims, whenever they are real, those aims, and not just something signed in a paper, but assuming that. And it often, it's also based on personal identity, meaning by personal identity that if I define myself as a feminist working for gender equality, and my institution is definitely aiming at gender equality, then my personal identity and my professional identity and my role within the institution would be coincidental, right? However, this coincidence is not necessarily free of friction. Being feminist within institutions, you know what I'm talking about. Then, the professional role, of course, can be also a motivation. The main drive here in this case is working in an equal opportunity unit, human resources, or similar positions. So I'm working for equality from my professional role, okay? Then I might have other social concerns. This is a compatible social cause leading to mutual support and alliances. For example, if I have intersectional concerns based on sexual orientation, young age, class, some of you were mentioning the importance of having this intersectional approach between class and gender, ethnicity, of course, and so on. So that can be my motivation. This intersectional approach, not specifically champion against racism. I might find some common grounds here, okay? And then some instrumental motivations, some coincidence of interest, for example, if it will help me to improve my university position or the ranking of the university, which is also a reason for universities to go for gender equality, to access funds. For example, we need a gender equality plan to be eligible for these Horizon Europe programs and so on. Instrumental motivations, you know, maybe we can think that not so important, not so nice, more in a technical approach, not so much political approach. Pros and cons here, but we need to take that into account. Some people might start with these instrumental motivations, and then when they join the team, they start working with us, they start having the experience, starting to know a little bit more about the issue, and in the end, they might find themselves as you know, really into the issue and being other motivations and not only instrumental ones. So that will be the last one. People with mixed motivations, they have more than one ground for active involvement. And of course, depending on the context, again, mixed ground normally is the more frequent situation. So I'm a feminist, I don't have a position working for gender equality, but you know, it's normally we are not just closed identities. We have all these mixed motivations. So that is the common thing. So we need to think about how people maybe can start in the process with one specific motivation, professionally based, whatever, and then we can engage that person, you know, in a more I like to talk about the political engagement, because for me, it's a totally political issue when we're talking about power relations and so on. I hope you know what I mean when I say about the political and not understanding gender as a technical issue. But that is normally part of the process of those people not so much engaged at the beginning, that they start being or seeing or understanding this political side to gender once they are already in the process, okay? And then one figure here that is interesting, again, I come back to Fiona Mackay, is this figure of the outsiders within, as he talks about this role of academic feminists as change agents and all the challenges that they face, especially when they are leaders and they are in top management positions. It's really difficult for academic feminists in top management positions, to have a peaceful life within the institution. And then she makes a difference with this academic feminists for whom the academic and the political identities really intertwine. And those other that are feminists, but their expertise lies elsewhere. They're not so active. I'm feminist, but I don't have the knowledge. I'm not in the team. I'm not here as a professional role. So we need to develop different strategies for all of them and make sure that all of this different knowledge is brought into the issue, right? And we take care of all the different motivations. And this is one key for change agents. If you feel that your motivation is not important, or if we as a main or the core team are not taking care of the different motivational aspects, or we value one more than the other, that can totally destroy our strategy. If people, they don't feel valued, or they feel that they are less important, my motivation is not that important, then I'm out. So why am I here? And we are not in a position to lose people when we are talking about gender equality. So we really need to care about people and about their motivations and think what they can bring in and how, okay? Then about accessing competencies. Change agents need, as we were saying since the very beginning when we did the first exercise, we need them to have not only the knowledge, this is knowing the theory about gender, about institutional change and so on. We need also people with skills. This is being competent to apply the theory in practice. We need skills. At some points, we need negotiation skills, we need facilitating skills, and so on. And of course, we need the attitudes. So this is the way of applying the theory in a certain way that can motivate and engage other people. So we need a balanced combination of the three of them. So it's not only we're doing a gender equality plan, we need a gender expert, and that's it. Because she, and they say she, because normally it's a woman there, is going to feel very lonely and very frustrated if she cannot count on a team with different skills and attitudes and so on, okay? So it is important to acknowledge this, and also, of course, that we cannot expect the team to have all the knowledge and skills and attitudes since the very beginning. What we need to do in an initial kind of assessment of competencies is that we see what we have. We can do that also as part of the map of actors. And then, based on that, we think how to acquire what we are missing. So some can be built through training, others can be secured just through time. This is people just try and fail and try again. That is experience in the end, things like that. So what the important thing here is that we cover the full range of skills and competences that are relevant, okay? Then, you've got all this information in one of the handouts. Again, if you didn't receive that, please let us know, we will send that. So I'm not going to stop here, but yeah, just unless you want to raise any specific issue about this, or Marina, if you want to add anything, I think this is one of these times that I need to be running a little bit, so I won't stop here. Just one thing.
It's okay, go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Marina. Just one thing, because there was one of you that was mentioning in your expectations that you were looking for, how did you put it? Ways to energize the teams or things like that, something like that. And what we found at the UCM, we have a gender equality nodes network with a representative in each one of the centers of the faculties of the university. We have 26 faculties, so quite a big network. And one thing that was really motivating and energizing for them is that we did this capabilities assessment, and they decided what they wanted to be trained in first. So, for example, we are offering them tailored trainings regarding their own competences, skill, and attitudes. We are having now, for example, one in November about negotiation skills and conflict resolution, which is really important, conflict resolution, things like that. And this is really energizing for the teams and motivating for the teams. We need this, we are going to work that, so we all have that. And we don't have it, if we don't have it in our team, then again, go to the map. Who in our map might have this specific skill, knowledge, or attitude? And we need to bring them, to build a strategy to bring them into the team, okay? Then, what assets and resources should we guarantee to our primary change agents for more effective and less exhausting work? Time, either formally allocated or voluntary, but we need time. We don't think about this normally. It takes a long time, lots of time and lots of effort to do effective institutional change. This is really time consuming, so we need to take that into account. Then institutional resources, of course, not only money, but places, equipment, meeting rooms, so on. Economic assets, expertise, as we said, institutional embedment, information, of course, communication, key for the whole process. And one thing here, one lesson learned about communication is that when we are in a context that people are not allowed to actively speak against the process because it's not politically correct anymore, not in some countries like in Hungary and so on, but for example, in our context in Spain, you know, it's not politically correct. You cannot say, I'm against this process, transformation process. So what they do is that the resistances look for other way, and they tend to criticize things like the communication strategies. It was not well communicated. I didn't get the information. Where does this come from? This is suddenly falling from, what are you talking about? This is not, I don't get it. So we really need to take care of the communication strategy. And this is something that we need a strong communication team within our change agent group. Okay, that's really important. And okay, last, sorry. What are the options for these team compositions? So the thing is that whenever it is possible to set up a team, we need to think of, depending on our context, what is going to be the best composition to help accessing both the competences and, of course, the resources and the assets needed. So again, here, diverse teams will play a major role for this. We need to have a core team of probably not many people, but as diverse as possible. As diverse also in terms of motivations, knowledge, and so on, okay? And then you have here in the list different combinations for teams. These are all coming from examples and from currently existing situations in different institutional settings. And it doesn't mean that you need to go for one or that you set up just one. You can have a mixed model, or even better, you can have a combination of several of them that cooperates in different forms. Like, for example, we do have a core team with both people hired specifically for that position and voluntary people also joining the team, and that is the core team. And then we have this gender equality nodes network. And we did have a follow-up committee for the gender equality plan, where we try to engage these top management positions. So you need to think, what are the different models that will work better in your institution, okay? So I hope that was useful, what we did today. Tomorrow, we will go for the strategies. Have a nice day.